Hi, dear listeners. Welcome to this new episode of my podcast, A Digital Tomorrow. Today, I'm joined by Irene Lee. Irene is currently working as Head of Retail, FinTech and Private Wealth Management Compliance at Huatai Financial Holdings, Hong Kong Limited. And she's also working or acting as a member of the board of directors at the FinTech Association of Hong Kong. So, without further ado, welcome Irene to my show.
Thank you. My pleasure to attend this forum.
Well, the pleasure is absolutely mine, and I would like to thank you again for accepting my invitation. And well, I think that today we can touch on many topics, because you're an expert on many interesting topics. So the idea would be to talk about fintech, compliance, Web3, GBA. So I would like maybe to start with your experience as a compliance officer and RegTech enabler, because I talk to many people of the coming from this fintech industry, but to be honest, I haven't spoken with many people on my podcast who come from this regulatory/compliance background, which is quite interesting for me, given that I initially studied law. So I wanted to hear from you regarding this experience that you have as compliance officer, RegTech enabler, and super connector when it comes to fintech, GBA, etc.
Yeah, actually, I would like to share my story very much because, like what I shared with you in the newspaper, actually, I was featured in the Hong Kong Economic Times yesterday, and also today they have a free web version circulated to the public as well. So they are also asking the same question: how you end up in the compliance industry, and how you enter into the fintech compliance industry, and how you balance between a very prudent compliance officer from a very stereotype and into something that is more enabler in the digitalization or deploying technology in the financial industry. And maybe start from what I studied in the university and the high school. Basically, I'm an art student. So I studied Chinese and English literature throughout my whole high school and university years. So I have deep knowledge in the Chinese culture and literature, and I know how to write poems. I know the traditional Chinese calligraphy, and I know how the ancient Chinese come about. And I all know about the feng shui or Chinese astrology as well. So it is something very like academia and also a lot of deep knowledge in the words. So when I graduated, basically people ask, with your background, basically you need to just submit the application to the school, be a teacher or be a research assistant. That's how I found my first job as well. So I'm a research assistant in the social work department, where I love because I want to study the world or study the society by reading the people's mind or reading the wordings in the theories. So this is something I want to study. Then after finish the project with the Hong Kong Youth Social Work Department, and I think I need to come out from the laboratory or come out from the university lab because I want to really understand the real world, how the real world works. And people still giving me advice, discouraging me, hey, I don't think you need to find a job in the commercial world, or don't think about being a banker or being a financial planner or whatever. You never get a job there because they need really economic degrees or need a business degrees, but you are holding just a literature degree. People would think that you don't have the mindset, skill set, or know-how. And I'm the person that whenever people say no, I would think that, oh, this is my way of success because people keep saying no. Then I will give a yes. So from having that yes, I will win the whole world of people that saying no. So I start off thinking how I can use my literature degree or skill set to really tap into the financial market. And then I think of which role in the financial market that I can leverage my literature skills. And I'm not thinking of administrative role or secretarial role. I'm really thinking of those key roles where I can be the gatekeeper or even the approver for even senior management in the financial industry. So I'm keep thinking which kind of role that I can be performing particularly well, leveraging my skill set. Then I found it's compliance. And the role in the compliance in the bank, even the CEO's personal dealing traits, we need to go via the compliance officer and get approval. So even all the policies, procedures, or new products initiatives, they will need to comply with the regulations and need compliance officer to vet, to review, and give opinions. And they don't need really arts, or they don't really need people that are good at maths or good at economics. So everybody can actually enter into the position as long as you have the passion or you know how the financial industry works. So that's how I submit my application to the first company, which is an insurance company, which is quite a big insurance company in Hong Kong at that time, very good at employee compensation. I think it's one of the largest even today. So it's Wing Lung Insurance, which I also disclosed in the Economic Times. So Wing Lung Insurance was acquired by China Merchant Bank. So it's like now it's the China Merchant Wing Lung Insurance, which is one of the biggest employee compensation insurance company. So in the first interview, the CEO asked me, how do you think you can perform the job better than those having a law degree or finance degree? I said, you need some person that taking a different angle to look at the laws and regulations. So lawyers is good at interpreting laws from a technical point of view, but I'm good at looking at it from a humanity point of view, or a human nature point of view, or even from a historical point of view, because I know how the people think when they write the rules and regulations, because I am trained to understand the literature meaning and the cultural meaning behind the words. So that means I know what people think from the word itself. Mm-hmm. So this is the really key magic skills that a lot of people won't really master it from scratch. So this is how I frame my story and become the head of compliance at that time for the insurance company with no background. So I report directly to the CEO, and within 3 months, I interviewed all the department heads and get the functional flow and write up policies, and also get the compliance program up and running for just within 3 months. So I stayed there for a couple of years, which I start from everything from scratch, because at that time, I think it is a time where compliance officer is still very new, and there's no really statutory requirement that every financial institution need a compliance officer. So I'm entering into that era when compliance officer is still a very, very, very early stage. So this is how I joined the compliance industry. So maybe I take a pause here, because I think that you seems to listen something that is very interesting. So I will see how you think about how I start my career.
No, I like it very much what you said, basically because even though your background is different from mine, it kind of resonates to me, because I wanted to study literature first initially. But I guess I didn't dare to, because people told me that, you're not going to make money out of that. So that's why I eventually decided to study law. And also because, unlike Hong Kong, where people can get jobs in areas which are not the ones where they studied, in continental Europe, it's quite different. No? So if you study law, you are like kind of like meant to stay in the area of law. No, if you study literature, it's going to be much more complicated for you. I know people in Hong Kong, for example, who studied, let's say, political science, and they ended up working as IT project managers in big banks, So I think it's possible, no, in Hong Kong and other places, but in continental Europe, it's much more difficult. So that's why I finally decided not to stick to law and this traditional path. But I guess my thing was always to study literature as you did, and I think it's interesting to see someone like you reaching this importance within the banking and compliance world, coming from this different background. So that's what I found so interesting. And then as well, you mentioned Chinese literature, and I'm a huge fan as well. I studied by reading when I was a kid, all those Jin Yong, Wulong books, and then I transitioned towards the more let's say, classic ancient ones, Taoist literature as well, or those Shenmo novels, from the Ming and Qing dynasties. So I found everything you said very interesting. I mean, it's a different topic compared to what I normally discuss in my podcast, but I found it interesting, and I find interesting that you ended up like being so important in these areas that we're going to discuss later as well.
Yeah, though after a few years, I also took the law degree just to understand what the lawyer thinks and how they train the lawyer. So that's something that I studied after a few years of experience in the compliance area. Yeah. And then I took MBA two years ago just to fill up the gap that, apart from literature and the real life experience, I also have some academic to fill up the academic gaps, so to speak. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, but I think it's very important. That's something I've always been trying to tell people, especially people in HR in general. I mean, this idea that you need like a diverse skill set in order to succeed in a job, that we don't need to be like to look and be exactly the same, because I mean, it's good. I know that people coming from industry, from law or from FinTech, they tend to think the same way, and that might be good. Of course, you need like certain skills to succeed in a job, but then at the same time, I feel like you need diversity as well. And you mentioned before that having studied literature allowed you to be able to think maybe like more critically, or know what people were thinking when they wrote what they wrote. So I think it's interesting to hear that.
Yeah.
And well, I wanted to ask you as well. I know you're an expert in compliance, and I know that one of the areas that you've been talking more on the media and in conferences has been that of the Greater Bay Area, the GBA, and you've been very involved in all the FinTech and RegTech adoption within the GBA. So I wanted to ask you about that, and more specifically about the Greater Bay Area, in the sense that why do you think this GBA, this GBA blueprint, will be so important for Hong Kong and in general for all the cities involved in this blueprint?
Yeah, I think as part of the GBA, so Hong Kong is part of the GBA, we have kind of important function or role in developing the unique clusters within China. And I'm not sure whether you know about the geographical location. Hong Kong is actually a very southern locations of the GBA. So facing the South East Asia or the southern of the China. So traditionally, where location are situated in south, it means very important strategic kind of position. So we are facing the world, but we are having a backup or support from the north, from China. So naturally, we have a role to be the gateway and bridging between the east and west. So this is how the history in Hong Kong, and also how we will frame ourselves as well. So GBA is so unique is that this is a really new development clusters, and everybody is eye on it because of the huge population, the unique combination between the different provinces and cities and their different focuses. So you can think of this as a mini China where you can try different pilots and business cases if you don't want to spend too many investments or resources in the northern of the China. So this is a very good population for you to build your business as a scratch and then expand it to China or the whole Asia or Southeast Asia. So Hong Kong is like a role to help to bridging or being a super connector to bring the business from the Westerns into China, but it is very hard for them just jump into China directly, but they can try to pick up Hong Kong as development area where they can first set up their business here, try the market there because of the low tax environment and also the very good law systems, and also they have a lot of international clients here and all the big players there. So it is all the foreign business can set up office in Hong Kong at a low cost, but then they can also help to use Hong Kong as a stepping stone for them to develop business in China. And before you go into the north of China, of course, you can first try expanding in the GBA because the culture, the language, the system business and all that is actually quite similar, where they don't have a very big culture shock. And also the talents there in the GBA are all very international, because all the great players from the China or from the international world would have the office in the GBA. And these are the things that I think you can never find a place in the world where they can have all the good things compact together. And also China would deploy a lot of different special schemes and benefit schemes for startups or for the conglomerate setting up office in the GBA, and you will have a direct support from the government as well. So for Hong Kong, I think the most important thing is that even we are in a very small population, but we have the big backup and support from the China, and Hong Kong would have a key role to translate what is good in China and tell the people in the foreign world, because we know Chinese, we know Chinese culture, we know the people in China, so we can tell them how to do business then. Because I think a lot of people find it difficult to understand China, understand different politics in the different areas. So I think we have the natural role to be a super connector to bridging different resources and the business opportunities. So I can expand it to different areas like green finance, FinTech, RegTech, and ESG and all that. So Hong Kong can actually build up our own positions to bring all these new topics and develop in Hong Kong, and also commoditize it to resell to China or sell it overseas. So I think we are a very good engine for all these innovative ideas.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing. Yes, I mean, I would say that one of the key points of the GBA is precisely the idea that each city brings to the table those areas in which each one of them is stronger. I mean, Hong Kong brings its financial prowess, whereas, for example, Shenzhen brings its more like, let's say, tech prowess, no? The only thing, though, is, I mean, we all know that Hong Kong has this very legal mature system. We all know that Hong Kong has been for long the gateway to China. We all know that Hong Kong's financial and banking industry is very mature as well. But the only thing, though, is that when it comes, for example, only on the tech side of FinTech, Shenzhen, for example, well, it's more advanced. No, they are managing maybe to create more unicorns, to innovate more. What I would like to ask you is, first of all, whether you share these thoughts or not, and in case you do, how could Hong Kong like leverage its financial prowess, legal prowess, to maybe like become even stronger on this tech side of FinTech?
So as you see that there's a lot of unique thing happened in Hong Kong, like the upcoming virtual assets service provider licensing regime, and where the government supported very well. They want to, when you see all the announcement in the FinTech Week from the SFC, from the HKMA, all actually want to develop Hong Kong as a wealth management and virtual assets regional hub. So everything they're doing, or they putting in the gesture or putting in the rules and regulation, is that whenever you have good ideas at virtual asset or digitalization, come to Hong Kong, because we are ready for it. And we have rules and regulation to govern all these innovation things. So people would regain more the optimism, so that they wouldn't think that Hong Kong is a place for speculations, for money laundering, and for any unstructured, ungoverned product and services. So investors will feel more confident when it comes to Hong Kong, because they know that something is coming to the ground. We are promoting the different technology like blockchain and all that, but in a more a regulated manner. So this is something that Hong Kong could give a long-term or a development in a more healthy way. And the other thing is that because of the different stock connect or different connect schemes, for Hong Kong, where you cannot replicate in the different in the other world as well. So let's say, for example, we have a few years back, we have the Stock Connect, where Hong Kong people or overseas people can actually trade A shares directly from Hong Kong through a special schemes. And this kind of model proven is successful because they can trade A shares without exploring to the domestic risk with a pilot and controlled schemes. And then a few years later, they have explored to Bond Connect, ETF Connect, and also the Wealth Management Connect, where you can see that China is opening up their capital market. And I would presume or predict that they will have virtual asset connect as well. So they will link the virtual asset development in China and Hong Kong, so they can actually launch some traditional finance product with underlying of virtual assets as well. So I can see that we will be having a lot of different initiatives from the tech side of things. And because of this new initiative, it will attract a lot of different players to Hong Kong to invest, to try to have POC and to have pilot scheme as well. So I think this is our unique position.
No, I fully agree. And I think all these Stock Connect schemes are actually very important. No? I mean, the Wealth Management Connect scheme, you mentioned ETF as well. And I think we're actually going to see its full potential in the years to come. No, because first of all, because all those schemes will be more mature, but also because I think those last 3 years, because of the pandemic and the restrictions, may not have been that representative of what it may come in the years to come. But it looks like the restrictions are finally being eased in both the mainland and Hong Kong. So I guess the years to come, no, these 2023, 24 will be exciting. And you mentioned before as well the Hong Kong FinTech Week. I actually had the pleasure to participate in that conference as a speaker in a panel about virtual assets. And I think you as well moderated one of the panels. I seem to remember that I watched it on the digital yuan, the electronic Hong Kong dollar. I remember it was very interesting. So I wanted to ask you, not so much about your specific panel, but in general, about one of the ideas that I covered in my panel, and in general throughout the conference was deeply covered, is that of regulating virtual assets. You mentioned, and it was mentioned during the conference as well, that there will be a new set of regulations for virtual assets in Hong Kong. Basically, we all summarize that in multiple articles, but one of the key ideas is the fact that investing in cryptos will be open for retail investors, and many more things. So I wanted to ask you a few things about regulating virtual assets. Now, first of all, why is it so important to regulate this area properly? I mean, we all saw FTX in this kind of cases. So why do we need to regulate this? And secondly, whether you think that Hong Kong is moving in the right direction or not. Your thoughts about these new regulations that seem, at least to me, very interesting now, and I think they will allow this industry to be developed in Hong Kong like in a secure manner.
Yeah, I have seen this journey, I think, way back to 2018 when, during the FinTech Week as well, when SFC and HKMA first issued something around virtual asset. And at that time, they also put around the infrastructure for how distributor or financial institution, when they want to engage with virtual asset service provider. And I do see the position statement in like 4 or 5 pages. And then when we look into it from a bank point of view, it seems to us that it's a no. It's a no circular because there's a lot of things to do with. You need to employ an auditor to review the due diligence of the service provider, and the service provider would need to comply with 100 different things like custodian requirement, client money protection, the capacity of the system, and also around the record keeping as well. So at that time, the technology is a bit of premature, and the financial institution does not have a lot of know-how, or even for compliance officer like me, I don't know what virtual assets is about. I don't really know what Bitcoins is about, because I didn't see any real commodities. I would only know about a ledger, and this ledger could be encrypted, and I won't know what happens behind and what blockchain is about. Even I need to know it, it won't be a easy way to uncrack the code. So it is so cautious for the bank to even talk about it, or start to talk to our clients that we will launch all these things, because we don't have a house view. We won't recommend to the clients on something that we don't know, right? So we failed the test of know the product because we don't know. So at that time, I think a lot of banks does not really proactively in engaging and comply with the circular, just say, oh, not applicable is because we are not going to offer that, and that's it. So if the distributor world does not offer everything, then the end user won't know everything. And then even you got a license in the virtual asset service provider, that means useless, because you have the license to do business, but no one distributing the product. So the industry is actually not going to happen. So we go through a lot of different discussion with the regulator, government, and say, hey, this kind of circular won't really help. And the regulator also asks us why we are not doing business on this. We are already writing everything to promote the industry. But I said, you write too much and doesn't really initiate maybe a project to teach us how to sell the product and how to go past all these hurdles. Because one of the requisite is that I need to do notification to the regulator. Every financial institution would say, oh, when I go to the regulator, it will be into trouble, and they will come to scrutinize or investigate my system to make sure I comply with all these rules. That means it's a really real hurdles and headaches and resources for bank to deploy. So, and what for? Because for financial institution at that time, we have lots of other things to do. Why I need to spend additional resources to have nothing come up or no upside for us? So I think in the past, we do not really actively do it. But I think things change a little bit when a lot of lobby happens and more exchanges on board to Hong Kong. And I think because of the pandemic, we really see that traditional finance does not have a really sustainable curve and development, and everybody wants to have something new, and that's come to the virtual asset and Bitcoin and all that. Of course, FTX crisis and the other bankruptcy of the exchanges would pose a lot of I think crisis or challenges to us. But however, think about it, in many years ago when the internet bubble came up, we also gone through all these crises. But that means that we have, I think, a path to make it better or in a healthy way. Bitcoins may be speculative, but it doesn't undermine the real technology behind Bitcoin. So that would be the decentralization, or even about the blockchain technology. But just that now, think about it, it won't be a full decentralization, but halfway through, or we putting decentralization into a centralization environment. So it would be having different development on putting blockchain technology into the main financial industry, so that by maybe the development of Hong Kong to putting rules and regulation and definition of what virtual asset is, and also how to bring a more better or equipped in a company to Hong Kong that will bring also a confidence or a better way for the investors to contribute to this industry. So I would think that this is a natural process.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree with you. I think that, I mean, to me at least, what's important here is the technology behind it. I mean, the things that are being created within this industry. Of course, I mean, we'll find scammers in this area, and we'll find dodgy projects. We'll find many unpleasant things, but I think we need to stick to the actual technology behind, and try to separate what's good from what's bad. And you mentioned before the .com bubble, and I think that's a good example. That didn't kill the internet. I mean, that just, to some extent, expelled from the market the actors that shouldn't have been there in the first place. We're actually going to run out of time soon. We got only a few minutes remaining. So before wrapping this episode up, I wanted to ask you if you had like any final thoughts that you wanted to share with my audience, or anything that you wanted to discuss that you didn't do before.
Yeah, I think I want to give some support to your channel, because I think that's very important for you to really invite a lot of different speakers around the world to share the experience, and also to promote technology as well. I think during all these days, we have a lot of sad stories and crises and surprises. Everybody is losing patience, perhaps, or losing confidence in what they're doing today. So comparing to maybe 10 years ago, where we are very confident to what we are doing, like I'm a compliance officer, and I am working in the really big brands or top tier banks, I won't think that I'm in the trouble. So I can work until I got retired and I have the job securities. But all these things changed like within just few years. We got pandemic, we got change in all the working environment and health and family. So everything changed. So we cannot really use our old experience to cope with the new world. And we really need to come together and share experience, how we should frame our future and how to change our mindset to cope with all the crisis and all that. So my last remarks on this will be, we will need to keep learning from crisis. Don't, I think, afraid of crisis. It always have a cost. Why and the rationale behind it happens in this way. Maybe what happened to FTX is something that we really learned. When new things come into the ground, we just don't be too rushed to jump into industry. And even you jump into the industry, you need to think for the worst and prepare for the worst and get the lesson from it and then create something new. And always keep your heart that you need to have some good thing outcome back to the universe of the industry. Don't take advantage for everything, but try to contribute to the industry. Then I think you will earn a lot and become more and more equipped for the future opportunities. That I think how I learned it from all these journeys and still survive. And I'm happy that I'm still survive.
I agree. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts, Irene. And I fully agree with you. I mean, I know that crises are painful. I mean, if we talk about the pandemic, people lost their lives. If we talk about FTX, people lost their money. Maybe, I mean, we cannot deny that it's painful, but we need at least to try to learn something from each one of them. No, I mean, we need to try. I don't know, for example, from the COVID-19 pandemic, I guess we all learned that perhaps we don't need, let's say, to take a plane to go everywhere. No, I mean, we learn more about doing things more virtually. From FTX, I think that we all, the whole industry, regulators, everyone needs to learn perhaps that certain areas need to be for sure much more regulated. I guess we need to try at least to learn out from everything that's been painful, so we can at least improve those that we are still here. And well, I would like to thank you again for your time, and thank you as well for your support to my channel. I try, as you said, to interview as many people as possible from all the tech-related industries, from everywhere. I have, of course, this bias for Hong Kong, given my Hong Kong background, but I try to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. So once again, thank you very much, Irene.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and to all my listeners, please stay tuned for the next episodes. Thank you very much, and see you all soon.
See you. Bye-bye.